Hello there, I'm G, and this is Remember Me for the PS3, Xbox 360, and PC. I'm playing the PC version here, and I highly recommend you do so also. It's a very visually intense game, and, you know, you're going to get the best of that on the PC version, let's be honest. So what is it? Well, it's a third-person action adventure, which I know is possibly the most non-committal generic description you could possibly give a game, but I think you'll figure out pretty quickly what this thing's about once we get really into it. So what's the story? The story is kind of the big draw of this game. The setting is, I don't know if unique's the right word, but yeah, I get it is unique. You don't see that much cyberpunk stuff at the moment, although it is making a bit of a resurgence. So let's get into it. This is Nillan. This is our protagonist. I know, shock horror, a female protagonist that isn't, you know, practically naked all the time. So, you know, that is unique, I'll give it that. And that thing on her neck is the Sensen. That's this world's equivalent of, say, an iPhone. It's a bit of technology that everyone has, and it's, you know, kind of part of the wider culture of just the entire country now. This is set in France, by the way, which, yeah, that is a unique thing. We don't get many games not set in America. And it actually comes to head in some interesting ways. They talk a lot about European politics, which is not something I'm used to seeing in a video game. But anyway, Sensen. What it does, instead of taking pictures of your cat that you can send to friends like you do with an iPhone, it digitizes memories. And that means people can turn memories into a kind of currency. You can say like, oh, here's my happiest memory, I'll exchange it for this service or whatever. So now the entire culture of Paris and perhaps the wider world, it's not really explained, is based around trading memories and such like. Unfortunately, you have lost your memories because you are a video game protagonist, so naturally you have to have amnesia of some kind. But apparently what you used to do is be an excellent memory hunter who goes around stealing memories. And you were part of some sort of militia group that was against the big-ass corporation that, of course, controls all the memory trading and so on. It's not entirely clear why, but it's fairly well indicated that said company is up to some very bad nonsense. And so you are on a quest to reclaim your memories whilst fighting off the evil big corporation. Now that might not sound like a particularly enthralling story, and I guess it's not, but what's more interesting is the world building, and I've chosen this area to start off with because I think it's a very good demonstration of what this game's strength is. They've put a lot of effort into making this world with depth. It feels like everything has a purpose. This is how things would be. Like we're in a slum right now, and see, these are all the little stores, and I love how if you go up to each of them, they have like this little sort of augmented reality, I don't know, label or sign or whatever, and all the shops have a different one with their own little names and sort of taglines and stuff like that. It's really cool. And this area's already been cleared out of civilians because it flooded. I won't go into why, that sort of ties into the story. I don't want to give too many spoilers. But it's left all like the cyborg workers, well, not cyborg, the robot workers around. It's got a very depressing feel, this area. It's like the slum's finest, but I won't get one half price. And like, looks delicious. I think there's one where their tagline is almost as good as fresh. And of course you've got your robot prostitutes, because of course there would be if we had robots, you know, it's kind of a given. But yeah, just look how much stuff there is everywhere. Just this one little area that you'll only visit once. Just look at all this stuff. They're really trying to tell a story with just this tiny little self-contained area that you'll never see again. But let's actually get into the actual meat of the game. So the main enemies you'll be fighting this game are police is part of it, but they don't play a huge factor from what I played so far. I'm about like 30% into the game. This bit's about quarter in. Just look at that sign. How awesome is that? I want that to be the future. We need signs like this in the real world. Just big holograms everywhere. It's been great. But yeah, the thing you're spending most of the game fighting are these things called leapers. They are people whose Sensen has sort of malfunctioned in some way. It's not really been explained too deeply at the point I'm in the game, but the idea is that the corporation's trying to cover up that, you know, every 1 in 10 people who actually use the Sensen end up as these weird, crazy-ass zombies that want to kill everyone. And this is a nice thing here. This is little hints about where collectibles are. The idea is that previous members of the militia have left little indicators for you, and that's how you unlock health upgrades, which is kind of important, but also not. The combat is... well, we'll get to that. So, most of the time I get a very actually, we're in some combat now, so I'll save what I was going to say for a little bit. So these are Leapers, and now we're in combat. So, for the combat, they've tried extremely hard to make it all Batman Arkham Asylum-y, in that it's all about very simple combos that flow together and, you know, dealing with crowd control, dodging at the right time, stuff like that. And it's not... it's partway there. The ideas are in the right place, the heart's in the right place, but it's just not very smooth. So let's just try and beat up some guys. So you see at the bottom there, I have a little combo indicator. And what the different colours for those combo inputs are press ends. They're little upgrades you can give to your combo attacks that give them different properties. Like, let's just go into the combo lab and show you. So this is my basic combo, XXX. And there's 4 different types of press ends. You unlock extra uses of them as you get through the game, which give you more hit to your combos and stuff like that. But with this basic one, I have standard X. The first input in a combo has no effect. You can't put a press end on it. But the second one has a yellow press end. And what that means is I will regenerate health if I hit that. And the next one is a red one. And that means that hit will do extra damage. And with certain enemies, will open them up to a very impressive finishing move. And generally, the further along the combo your press end is, the more effect it will have. In addition, we also have cooldown press ends, which I believe are these purple ones here. And they cool down your big, like, crowd clearing abilities, which we'll see in a bit once I get to a bigger encounter. And then we have link press ends. And what they do is they copy the effect of the previous press end, but then increase it. So the idea is you want that right at the end of your combo to, like, give you a massive boost. So on this one, first X does nothing. These 2 Ys will regenerate some health. Then this X will cool down my abilities. And then this Y will cool down my abilities even further. So with that combo, I'll regenerate a bunch of health, and I'll get a massive cooldown on some of my abilities. So it's nice in that way. So you can customize different sort of builds, I guess. So you see, this is my big damage combo. Gives me a little bit of cooldown, but it also lands a lot of power press ends. So that's really useful to use against enemies I can do finishing moves against, which, to be fair, is not many of them. The Leapers are apparently completely immune to those abilities, so that's it's not as useful as it sounds. But yeah, I'm under the impression you'll get a maximum of 4 combos by the end of the game, and I imagine I can't be too far off unlocking that 4th one. I've unlocked most of the press ends at this point as well. There's only, I'd say I've got about half of them actually. I've got a key, in fact, so you get keys basically from leveling up, doing enough combat. You can level up a bit faster by finding certain collectibles. Let's unlock... oh, I was going to say unlock a Y so I can finish this combo here, but sadly it has not granted me access to another Y. Got 4 power, let's get... you know what? I'm going to leave it. I don't really want to change that combo any. Actually, no. Let's unlock this X key. So I'll plant this X press end here in this combo. So now, first hit does nothing. Second 2 hits give me cooldown. And the last 2 hits will give me a big power boost. So that's a nice combo. Deal damage and cool down some of my better abilities. That's really nice. That's a really clever idea. Where it falls down is the actual combat part itself. It's not smooth. It's very, very rigid and stiff, and the strength of those Batman games is not just the ideas that they're putting forward. It's the fact that when you hit, it feels like it has impact and it immediately flows into the next move. This game doesn't have that. It does let you continue a combo after you dodge, but if you start attacking a different enemy, because you're going to have to, because you need to defend yourself as you're being surrounded, it'll then cancel the combo you're on. So it makes it very difficult to, you know, keep that combo flowing together. You end up resetting all the time, and it's not fun. Well, it is fun, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like it's not living up to the strong ideas they put forward. It's a really good start, but it just doesn't quite get there. And, you know, I don't really mind. I like the rest of this game so much that it doesn't matter to me. I mean, again, this is another, like, tiny area you'll only visit once, but it has such personality to it. Like, there's billboards and news broadcasts and a robo-brothel, because, you know, they're always... What could possibly go wrong there? Just look at it. Look at all this. So much work went into just crafting these tiny little segments. There's not even any dialogue or anything like here. I'll say the voice acting's a bit hit and miss. Some people not too keen on it. I quite like Nillen's voice when she's talking to herself. It's when she's interacting with other characters it can get a little awkward. But I think that's maybe a symptom of, you know, a lot of this dialogue is recorded separately. Just because characters talk to each other doesn't mean they, you know, they were in the same recording booth. Unfortunately, that's just a reality of the industry. At this point, I've just unlocked the spammer, which allows me to knock these leapers who like to hide up on walls off the walls. And this guy, red guy here, I can't remember what they're called, but they're like a special type of leaper that gains power the more normal leapers are around. So the idea is the combat puzzle here is to avoid his attacks and take out all the grunts so that he powers down. I don't think you can even hurt him when he's like that. So to do that, I'm just going to knock some of these guys off their perch. And I'll use some of my cooldown ability, well, cooldowned abilities. So the moment I've just got Sense and Fury, and that basically turns me into like the Arkham Asylum free flow mode, where just all your attacks hit really fast and do a lot of damage. So that knocked out one of them pretty quick. To do with regenerating health. So what was my regen combo again? That's X, Y, Y, X, Y. Okay. Let's get him to come down. X, Y, Y, X, Y. There we go. You may notice that the music actually dynamically changes depending on how well you're doing, and I'm quite fond of that. Ah, see, because I had that cooldown press in that combo, now my Sense and Fury is already usable again. Oh. Yeah, so the big red exclamation marks basically say, like, you should probably dodge now. One thing is, enemies will sometimes do that off-screen, which I think is another strength of that Batman game, or those Batman games, I should say. They always made sure the enemies that were attacking you were on screen, and this game's camera is not quite that advanced. It's good for the most part, but it doesn't always work out. Okay, just got this one guy left to do. I should say, just because an ability is cooled down doesn't mean you can immediately use it. You also have a thing called Focus. And what that does is, it's essentially like a PowerPoint you use every time you use an ability that has a cooldown. And you gain those points from just dealing enough damage, so it's not enough just to like be really defensive and wander around and, you know, just wait for cooldowns, jump in, do damage, and jump back out. You can't really play the game that way. This guy's lost his buff now, so I can use the spammer to soften him up a bit. If it will let me. Oh, yeah, I forget I haven't unlocked like the damage upgrade for the spammer, so it's kind of useless against these guys at the moment. But anyway, Sense and Fury. If I was smart, I would have tried to get a health regen combo in there just to get my health back up. But I didn't. So sue me. Where to go next? So the spammers at this point is mainly just used for like unlocking these little platforming areas that you need to progress, but later you get a damage upgrade that makes it much more useful in combat. We may get that far, we may not. I mainly just want to show a lot of these areas and then get into the memory rewrites section, which is a bit earlier in the game, but I'll get more on that later. As you can probably see, this game has it's very hard trying to be an Uncharted style game with all this kind of puzzle platforming nonsense and sort of hidden collectibles off in the middle of nowhere like here. So there we go. I believe normally there would be one up here somewhere, but as I've already done this area, it's not here. So you'll just have to take my word for it. I believe there was another collectible in there too, which is also gone. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that where it's like an important part becomes identifying where you need to go to progress the narrative forward and where you can go to find collectibles and health upgrades and stuff like that. Because this game is completely linear. You don't get to revisit anywhere. Once you leave an area, that's it. You can't go back. So you kind of have to be careful about that. I kind of wish this game was open world when they've done such a great job in crafting an interesting place to explore. But, you know.
This ad. I've heard it before.
That's a good sign, sister. It means your core memory resisted the treatment.
So this Edge dude, he's basically your militia boss. Very mysterious fellow who's very morally ambiguous. That's another interesting thing about this game as well. Although you are kind of a freedom fighter, I should probably go use that health pack before I move on. Although you are a freedom fighter, you do some bad stuff. You're not exactly a nice person, let's say. There's a huge amount of grey area in this game. You know, corporations are evil and everything, but you do some pretty bad stuff yourself. You are very much a terrorist rather than just a simple revolutionary. Which is a unique perspective of having these games. Normally you have to be a goody two-shoes all the time because, you know, that's the only way to get publishers to approve stuff. It's a miracle they managed to get a female protagonist in this thing at all. Although, funnily enough, I would be not too surprised if you do not remember Me. It made a big splash over at E3 2012 and then it was never heard from again, even on the run-up to its release. But you know, not a great thing. Well, Capcom just kind of farted it out, which shows how much support they really have for a game about a female protagonist doing morally ambiguous things. You know, clearly it doesn't fit into their wider plans. I'm just happy this game exists at all. It's a shame it didn't really catch on, but, you know, can't always win. It's progress. Most certainly progress. They've put almost nothing into, like, sexualizing this character beyond, like, oh, here is a single shot of her mum. That's about as gratuitous as it gets. But, you know, that's not so bad. Compared to the, you know, normal way industry treat female characters. It's like, there's no battle bikinis in this, from what I remember. Well, who knows? I'm only part way in. Maybe it'll all fall apart and they'll have her fall in love with someone and then become extremely subservient. I don't know. Anything's possible in video games. I never cease to be surprised at the misogyny. But no, that's positive things. This is a game to be celebrated. I've really enjoyed what I played of it so far. This combat, I'm not massively taken with, but, you know, the depth of the world, that's always something I can get behind. You know, I really want to see more of this, maybe not of this character or this story, but I want to see more of this world, this Neo-Paris, this crazy cyberpunk landscape, with all its weird companies and corporations and factions. It's nice in a way that we don't really see in games very often anymore. You know, everything's so much about modern military and fantasy, which is, oh god, fantasy. Yeah, we get it. You like Lord of the Rings. Just make something different for a change. Then again, I'm sure there's many that would argue this is kind of Deus Ex by another name, which, you know, they wouldn't be too wrong. But hey, we get like one of those a year rather than 50, so screw you, that's what I'm saying. But yeah, I think that's about it for these action segments. I may skip forward a bit to, or skip back a bit to one of the memory rewrite sections, which was, they showed those off at E3 a while back, but they've changed significantly since then, and it's one of my favourite bits of the game so far. And sadly, there's only been one instance of it. I'm hoping more of them will occur later.
At least that's what Edge says.
Actually, no, I want to get a bit further here. There's an interesting enemy type that I'd like to show. And then I think we'll call it a day here. Oh, no, I was not meant to jump there. Oh, God. Well. Let's try that differently, shall we? Performance-wise, bear in mind my PC is not super high-end. It's alright. It's not the best, but it's enough to play most modern games. Performance-wise, this has been pretty good. There's been a few frame rate issues, but even with this capture kit, well, I say capture kit, with FRAPS running, it's not had much slowdown. It's at a pretty constant 25 frames a second, and I know there's some people out there who are like, whoa, less than 60? That's not good enough for a PC game, but, you know, for people who are not insane like me, yeah, it's fine. You know, it's perfectly playable. It looks fantastic for the most part. Animations are a little, as I said, animations are a little clunky. Like if I do a punch here, it just, you can see it's not exactly smooth, but it's smooth enough. It gets the job done. The important thing here, like I said, is the world. This Neo Paris, these robots, this weird AR hologrammy stuff that's everywhere. That's what matters. Just in life and in this game, you know. There's people out there inventing technology that's not getting us closer to this, then what are you doing? Be productive. Humanity needs to get to a point where I can live my crazy Ghost in the Shell fantasies. Otherwise I'll be very upset.
What was that?
So these are really interesting enemies. How they work is they are only visible near bright lights, otherwise they are kind of stealth and can sneak up on you and get these really big damaging hits. So in a moment we'll get a full-on combat encounter with them. And I feel like this is one of the bits where the combat really does come into its own. As I said, it's not great for the most part, but there are times where it just kind of clicks and you're like, okay, yeah, you see what you're going for, remember me, that's something. My big complaint about bits like this is they've been isolated so far. I don't think I've ever fought these invisible enemies alongside like a normal set of enemies, so it kind of keeps the combat puzzle very straightforward. It's like, okay, this is this kind of enemy, I need to fight them this way, rather than trying to think, okay, I need to fight this guy this way, this guy this way, this guy this way. So that light's off now, so they're all stealthed. Let's power that one up. You may notice I'm not exactly stellar at remembering combos. Right, so it's... Ah! Flashlight. There we go. Let's use my Sensei Fury. There is not much timing as far as combos go, it's just... you can kind of mash a little.
I just had a run-in with some leapers. Scary. They vanish at will.
I stopped being surprised.
They imply there's some kind of speed boost if you time your attack just as your previous attack hits, but
Until I get there,
I can't say I've not noticed it that much. Which again, that's something those Batman games did really well. I know it sounds like I'm just, you know, going crazy for those Batman games, but they got this kind of combat perfect.
Weathered the storm and reinvented.
Game's very good at this kind of diegetic exposition, if you will. There's lots of adverts and things that fill in the blanks about how this society works. Like there's the one I just passed is, I believe, about rehabilitating leapers and turning them into slaves, essentially. So, you know, nice bit of world building there.
This is gonna hurt.
And of course, because it's trying to ape Uncharted, there are lots of bits where Nilin will just fall from absurdly high places and appear to be incredibly injured and then recover within a matter of seconds.
Suck it up, Nilin.
It's kind of funny at this point. I mean, it was funny enough in Uncharted, but seeing another game try to copy it so much. Like, yeah, her leg's fine now. That didn't take long to heal. Another way this game adds a lot of story is these journal things you can find. They're not journal entries, they're basically blog posts. And the idea is a set of like, dislike. They have I remembered or I had forgotten, which is a nice little thing. And they're not kind of historical documents, if you will. They've really set them out like blogs. You know, some of them are written by people with a certain agenda or a sense of humour or stuff like that, and other ones are very factual, to the point things. So it's a very nice way of approaching it, and they all have dates and hits and stuff like that. It's interesting. It's a very novel way of approaching that kind of thing. And they're very well written as well, which I think is important. Need some sleep, rent a box. I'll buy around tomorrow. Yeah, it's a depressing world. There's nothing happy about the world of Neo Paris. And much like Uncharted, the game is very fond of these kind of pullback, like, look how enormous this area is thing. And it gets them right most of the time. It doesn't quite have that same sense of awe. And it's enemy time. Yeah, I'll finish this combat encounter and then it is to the rewinding segment for me. One, two, three. The only combo I can seem to get off consistently is XXX, which should give you an indication of how well I tend to remember this kind of stuff. Actually, you know what? Let's move on to the memory remix thing. You know what the combat is like here. It is a lot of what you just saw over and over. So yeah. See you in a sec. I will just load up a previous save. And we're back! And welcome to one of my favourite things about Remember Me, the memory remix segments. So what's going on here is I'm now in the mind of Olga, who is a bounty hunter come to arrest Nilin. But she wants to arrest her because she needs to be able to pay for the very expensive treatment that's stopping her husband turning into one of the Leapers. So, in order to make her change her mind about turning you in, you need to change her memory, so instead of being taken care of by a doctor, the doctor instead is killing David, her husband. And you do that by rewinding through her memory of her husband and finding these glitch points and altering them in some way, which will in fact change how the memory plays out. So if I fast forward through it here, you can let it play out normally, where it will just be a case of doctor saying, well, we can save him, he'll be fine, but it's very expensive. And so she'll be like, oh, I better go arrest that dangerous criminal then. So what we can do here is let's try, see, that's a glitch here. If I press B, then go in, it's like, what would have happened if that restraint had been loose? If I fast forward a little bit, see that eventually he notices. Yeah, playing the wrong bit. Oh no, wait, that's right, I haven't got it quite right yet. You see, earlier on in the scene, the doctor also gives him a sedative, so what might happen if... let's find the right glitch. There it is. Instead of a sedative, he accidentally gave him a stimulant.
Risk of loading identity. Short. The inevitable shattering of
So instead of the blue liquid, he's now giving him that red one. Now, that's also...
Doctor, what's wrong?
He's a little flustered, that's all. Nothing to worry about.
He was going nuts.
Try to focus on peaceful memories.
Let's see, can I also undo the restraint? I believe there's only one way to do each of these segments, but you can get a lot of different interesting results.
David.
One there we go. The controls are a little finicky in this. You have to kind of rotate the stick clockwise to go backwards, and then anti-clockwise to go forwards. And it can get a little bit awkward. There we go. Yeah, I don't remember having this much trouble with it last time. There we go. So now I've made it so his mask is also loose.
Come on, David. Remember us. Remember yourself.
Yeah, the Leapers say a lot of crazy stuff. But I didn't undo his restraint, so he's in fact sealed in place. If I go back and then undo that restraint, he will then be able to actually escape and go completely nuts, which will result in the Doctor having to kill him to defend himself. Of course, that means David's dead, and Olga now, instead of having needs of money, he has needs of revenge against the Doctor, and will in fact side with you. It's a really nice little twist, and also adds a lot of kind of moral implications.
All that rage, all that pain.
And she's not technically a bad person, she's just someone who wants to help her husband. By stopping a criminal who has done some pretty bad things by all accounts.
Of course, other sessions will need to be scheduled.
But yeah, I'd say that's Remember Me. I think I've shown you a good cross-section of what this game's about. As I've said probably far too many times during this video, I don't think it's anywhere near as good as the games it's trying to ape, but it is still a really, really good game, and it saddens me greatly that Capcom put so little effort into promoting it. Especially after it made such a big splash at E3 back in the day. Well, back in the day, it was like a year ago. In fact, exactly a year ago, because current E3's on now. Either way, I highly recommend you go play Remember Me. It's more than worth playing. It's got some interesting ideas, some which work out, some which don't, but it's still a fun adventure, and story seems pretty strong. It's always nice to see female characters that aren't terrible, and, you know, it's just all round a pleasant title. Okay, well, see you around.